Building a football stadium in the UK is never simple. Behind the steel and concrete lie years of protests, politics, and pure madness. Some of the grounds we know today almost never happened at all. Councils blocked plans, locals protested traffic chaos, heritage groups fought preservation battles, and money nightmares nearly sank entire projects. Let's dive right in. 20. Wembley Stadium. The home of football almost never rose from the ashes. By the late 90s, the old twin towers of Wembley were crumbling, and England needed a new cathedral, but the road to the 2007 rebuild was pure chaos. Legal battles dragged on for years. Politicians fought over where it should be. Some even suggested Birmingham instead of London. But eventually, in 2007, the iconic arch rose 134 meters above northwest London. 19. Emirates Stadium. Arsenal's fortress in Holloway looks sleek and modern, but the Gunners almost never got it built. After decades at Highbury, Arsenal needed more seats, more cash, and more prestige. But when the Emirates Stadium was proposed in the late 1990s, locals were furious. Residents resisted compulsory purchases of homes and businesses. But persistence won. In 2006, the Emirates opened with a capacity 60,704. 18. Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Tottenham's glittering 62,850-seater might be the most futuristic football ground in the world. Retractable, NFL-ready, microbreweries inside the concourse. View, Bhutas nearly strangled before birth. The project became infamous for land disputes. One single pub, the Archway Tavern, refused to sell. A bitter legal standoff followed, dragging Spurs through the courts. Eyes were so bad Spurs had to camp out at Wembley for almost 2 years. 17. London Stadium. If Wembley was chaos, the London Stadium was carnage. Built for the 2012 Olympics, the plan was always to find a football tenant after the games. West Ham won the bid, but it sparked lawsuits from rivals Tottenham and Leyton Orient. Politicians bickered over public money. Fans protested about moving from the Bull and Grue ground to Wembley. After a £323 million refit, West Ham moved in. 16. Etihad Stadium. The Etihad wasn't even supposed to be Manchester City's home. It was built for the 2002 Commonwealth Games as an athletics stadium. Afterward, City swooped in, but not without resistance. Locals worried about traffic chaos. Funding rows erupted between Manchester City Council and critics, and the cost of conversion raised eyebrows. The gamble paid off. Expanded to 53,400 seats, with plans pushing towards 62,000. 15. Anfield expansion. Anfield is legendary, but its long-awaited expansion has been a saga of heartbreak and stalled dreams. For decades, Liverpool planned to either move to Stanley Park or expand the main stand. But every plan faced roadblocks. Residents using to move, conservation objections, planning delays, and financial crises. Finally, after endless false starts, progress came. The main stand opened in 2016, adding 8,500 seats and taking capacity to 54,074. 14. Old Trafford South Stand expansion. The theater of Dr. Dreams, long discussed, the South Stand expansion has been a nightmare. For years, United wanted to push capacity over 80,000. The problem? A railway line runs right behind the stand. To expand, United would need to reroute infrastructure at massive cost. Residents objected to disruption. Council politics stalled any agreement. The result? Plans shelved, revived, and shelved again. 13. Amex Stadium. The Amex is a beauty, sleek, modern, and surrounded by the South Downs. But getting it built was a 15-year war. Brighton lost the Goldstone ground in 1997 and was nearly homeless. When they chose Falmer as the site, local residents and conservationists went ballistic. Court cases dragged on for years. At one point, the project was declared dead. Politicians flip-flopped. Finally, in 2011, the Amex opened with 30,750 seats. 12. Cardiff City Stadium. Cardiff City's 33,280-seater home looks modern and comfortable today. But when it was first proposed, it ran into trouble on all sides. Local retail developers hated the idea of competition. Councillors were split over funding. Fans worried about losing Ninian Park's soul. The project stalled, revived, and stalled again. Eventually, in 2009, it opened at UT. This ground came within inches of being cancelled, a casualty of political infighting and financial woes. 11. Stadium MK. Opened in 2007 with a capacity of 30,500, this stadium was built on the ashes of Wimbledon FC. When the club relocated from South London to Milton Keynes, the entire football world erupted in fury. Fans protested outside the FA. Supporters boycotted. Franchise FC became a national scandal. For a while, it looked like the stadium would be boycotted into irrelevance. Yet the project went ahead, giving Milton Keynes a modern multi-use venue. 10. The Den. The old Den in New Cross was falling apart and notorious as one of the most intimidating grounds in England. Safety was a growing issue. The board proposed a brand new all-seater stadium close by. But that's where the headaches began. Local councillors resisted, worried that Millwall's infamous hooligan reputation would bring more chaos to a fragile community. Eventually, Lewisham Council caved, but not before long delays that nearly killed the dream. 9. Ricoh Arena. Coventry City had outgrown Highfield Road and needed a new modern ground. But what should have been a quick project dragged on for nearly a decade. Planning disputes, spiraling costs, and endless debates over location plagued the project at UT. By 2000. Nothing had happened. Construction finally began, but financial collapse loomed. The Ricoh finally opened in 2005 with 32,609 seats, and today it's known as the Coventry Building Society Arena. 8. St. Mary's Stadium. Southampton's move to St. Mary's in 2001 looked straightforward on paper. In truth, it was years of wrangling. The Dell was legendary but hopelessly cramped, with a capacity under 16,000. Plans for a new ground hit local nerves. Residents worried about traffic clogging up eastern Southampton. Conservation groups pushed back on riverside land development. St. Mary's finally opened in 2001 with 32,384 seats, doubling the Dell's size. 7. Pride Park. When Derby County decided to leave the baseball ground in the mid-90s, not everyone was happy. Pride Park was earmarked for a former industrial site on the edge of town. But local councillors slammed the idea, warning of traffic nightmares, economic decline in the city center, and environmental impacts. Work began in 1996, but only after months of political horse trading. Pride Park opened in 1997 with a capacity of nearly 34,000. 6. Reebok Stadium. The site at Middlebrook was on Greenbelt land, sparking heavy protests. Local activists argued it would destroy the countryside side and invite urban sprawl. For years, plans stalled. Finally, corporate sponsorship from Reebok, the sportswear giant, unlocked the project. Even then, building it meant clashing with environmental groups and redesigning road networks. The Reebok became a model of the modern multipurpose stadium. Its 28,723 capacity felt huge compared to Burned-In Park. 5. Stadium of Light. Sunderland dreamed of replacing Roker Park for decades. The first plan was to build on a riverside site by the Wear, but environmental objections and planning rejections piled up. The riverside idea was scrapped. Instead, the club turned to Monkwearmouth, a former colliery. Work began in 1996, and by 1997 the Stadium of Light opened with one of the largest capacities in England. Later expansions pushed it to nearly 49,000. 4. Deepdale redevelopment. In Deepdale in the 90s, the very future was in jeopardy. Redevelopment was badly needed. Yet Deepdale was partially listed as a heritage site, and campaigners fought to protect its iconic stands. Costs ballooned as designs had to be changed again and again. Between 1995 and 2008, each stand was demolished and replaced, turning Deepdale into a modern 23,000-seat ground. 3. Liberty Stadium. Officially the Swansea.com Stadium, rose from contaminated industrial land. That detail alone made its birth messy. Environmental groups launched protests, claiming redevelopment of the Morpha Copperworks site would cause toxic hazards. Cleanup costs spiraled, and funding arguments broke out between Swansea Council and developers. But the city pushed through, seeing the project as a chance to revitalize Swansea, and it opened in 2005. 2. Meadow Lane redevelopment. Home of Notts County, underwent a major rebuild in the early 90s. But things weren't smooth. Historic preservationists objected to changes, arguing that parts of the old stands held heritage value. The council initially blocked proposals, fearing the stadium would lose its identity and the surrounding area would be overshadowed. Funding woes also dragged on, with Notts County struggling financially. 1. Brentford Community Stadium. Few projects drag longer than Brentford's search for a new home. Plans for a new stadium have floated around since the 1970s. Every attempt ran into trouble. Political opposition, local objections over housing, planning delays, and failed financial backers meant decades of false starts. Griffin Park, beloved with its pubs on every corner, became increasingly outdated. Finally, in the 2010s, a site at Lionel Road was secured. From London to Swansea, from Heritage Rows in Preston to Greenbelt Fights in Bolton, these stadiums showed just how hard it can be to build in Britain. Politics, protests, and sheer madness nearly killed them all. But today, they stand tall, not just as football grounds, but as monuments to persistence. Thanks for watching. If you loved the video, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, comment, and hit the notification button. See you in the next one.